All right, hey everybody, welcome to Keyword Crypto. I'm Michael. I got a guest today, Patrick Luberus. Luberus, is that how you say it?
Hey, yeah, I'm Patrick Luberus. My last name, call it whatever you want. We actually got our family last name because the government officials in Haiti kept misspelling it, mispronouncing it. I think it was supposed to be Rachel, but we ended up with Luberus, so there you go.
Your last name was supposed to be Rachel?
Yeah, they flipped, like, I think my great grandfather was like Luberus Rachel or something like that, and they flipped it. And so that's how we ended up with this last name.
That's crazy because I used to hear these horror stories of people in Ellis Island butchering Irish people's names and just being like, I can't spell that or say that, so you're like O'Connell now. And then I read somewhere,
Yeah, basically.
But then I read somewhere that this was kind of blown out of proportion and didn't really happen. But I hear stories of it like yours all the time, and to me, it's like I hear too many stories for it not to be true. Maybe it wasn't as excessive as people joke around about, but it had to have happened because we wouldn't have this many this much anecdotal evidence of it happening at least a little bit. So I don't know. I do
have a lot of family in New York.
There you go. I mean, is that where your family came into? Did they go through Ellis Island?
A lot of my Haitian family. I don't know about Ellis Island. I really don't know that much about my family history aside from like that backstory on our last name. Basically, anyone in the world, if I find a variation of Luberus, I know it's connected to me somehow.
Oh, nice. Me, on the other hand, with my last name, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to talk for myself. But with my last name, it's just like the most common last name on the face of the planet, and so it's like Jones, and so I'm not associated with anybody at that point.
Gotcha. It's got to be kind of nice though. Anonymous.
I mean,
if you want to be,
yeah. If I want to be, it's very easy. But at the same time, it's just like I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you and I are in different boats. Is it cool when you come across with somebody who's even remotely associated with your last name?
So I haven't really in real life. I mean, I think I found out I was an uncle that way on Facebook. I was just searching my last name. I was like, "What? Who's this?" Oh, yeah. Apparently, that's I'm their uncle. Wow. Good to know.
Wait a minute. Like you have a brother or sister with a kid, and you didn't know that?
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Or maybe not uncle or like steps. I have some family connection to random people all over the world that I don't even know. I don't really have a good connection with my family, so it's just I find out. I'm like, hey, that's cool.
That sucks. I mean, is that good or bad? Are you bummed about that? Happy?
I don't know.
That?
It just is. It is what it is.
Do you want to talk about that, Patrick? Do you want to dig into your feelings about that?
This is my therapy session now. Oh man, here we go.
So I wanted Patrick to come on the show because, I'm excited about people who are not only who build in the space, who promote the space, but are actually nice. And Patrick's one of the nicest people on crypto Twitter you'll ever encounter. And his videos are very informative and helpful. And it's nice to have people like that on. And so I wanted to get you on here and talk about how you got into Nano, how you got into cryptocurrency in general, and then how you made your way to Nano, and then what you think's going on right now. So, like, how did you get into crypto?
So, do you want me to start there? I'm kind of thinking JJ was really interested in having me basically tear down Nano. It sounds like, and I could do that if y'all want to set a theme and just have me tear into Nano and
whatever you feel like doing.
Talk about issues.
This is coffee talk, man. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to get off your chest.
So many possibilities. Okay. Well, we can start with the background. So I got into Bitcoin, I think 2011 is when I first found out about it, college dorm, but I didn't understand it. I tried to mine it at the time, but I couldn't figure it out, and I basically gave up. I did sign up for Mt. Gox because I still have those emails saying, hey, your Mt. Gox account is compromised from 2011. But then in 2013, I think it hit $200 at the time, and that piqued my interest again. And then I started really looking into it and trying to figure out, what is this technology about? Why is it still around after 2 years for me, but I guess 4 years in general at the time.
Yeah.
And since then, it's just been a rabbit hole that I can't get out of. And I've tried.
So you're addicted like crack cocaine?
I mean, basically,
That's
it
how
is what it
crypto
is at this
Twitter.
point.
Yeah, that's how crypto Twitter is for me. I was just like, I'm gonna take a day off. I last about 4 minutes. I was
You
like,
can't, man.
no, it's just
Yeah,
like, I mean,
gotta look at
it's
something.
yeah. So what happened with Nano?
So I was pretty much a Bitcoin maximalist, partially because that was really all there was at the time. I think in 2017, I found out about Ethereum again because like a price rise put it in the news, and then I started digging into that a little bit. But I didn't really get into Ethereum that much. I still didn't understand the need for it or what niche it was hitting or how it would be useful to me. So I was still mostly into Bitcoin until probably 2017 or so. And then late 2017, of course, the big bull run started again, a lot of hype, but then we started seeing crazy fees, crazy wait times, and I was like, is this really it? Like, what's happening here? And there didn't seem to be much movement on the scaling issue, so I just started looking for alternatives. I think I actually got into IOTA first because that was hyped on Reddit or whatever. Then I found is it Byteball? It might be Obyte now, and
Yeah, remember
also
that?
Nano because they were all hyped as DAGs, right? That was the new key buzzword that was supposed to solve all the scaling issues and be the king of crypto. But yeah, then from that point on, it was pretty much. I'm not going to say all Nano because I'm still not a maximalist and I don't only follow or own Nano, but that's really how I got to Nano, and nothing's really changed my interest, I guess.
Did you
Because
ever? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Did you ever dig into IOTA first? Because like that was my entry
Yeah, I
point to
did.
Nano.
And I've heard you and JJ talk about it. Once it sounded really cool, but then once you tried to play with it, it had all these issues, right?
Yeah.
You had to like manually reattach transactions or reattach to the Tangle or something like that. You had to wait like up to 1 minute plus sometimes for transactions to show up, and then
Oh,
it
it
still
took
has the
weeks.
coordinator, of course.
It took weeks at
Yeah,
one point. That's why, like, that was the one that made me stop. Is when it took a couple weeks for it to go through, and I was like, "All right, this is not usable." I mean, Nano had the issues in the beginning when it was with the
yeah,
developer wallet, but that was just I had to accept. But there was always somebody there in the Discord, always somebody to hold my hand and walk me through it. Oh, press this button. Okay, now press that button, and now press this button.
yeah. Was
And
it
I'd be like,
Colin? Who were you talking to?
it wasn't Colin. It was like one of the moderators, and every single time it worked. And I was like, okay, thanks. They're like, yeah, no problem. Once the very next version of this is going to be a Nano non-dev wallet, and that'll do all that automatically. So don't sweat it too much. But if that happens again, these are the steps you take. And that lasted for about 2 months,
Yeah,
and then after 2 months, the Nano wallet came out. I was like, oh, this is unbelievable. This is exactly what I had envisioned everything in crypto was supposed to be. Um,
exactly. Yeah, because
so
I remember quite vividly in what I consider early days, like the 2013, 2014 timeframe of Bitcoin, like on the Bitcoin subreddit and pretty much everywhere, people were constantly posting about new businesses accepting Bitcoin. They were so excited about exchange listings, and not just from the trading perspective, but from the legitimate access perspective, right? I was personally using Bitcoin for remittances to my brother. I think he was in California at the time, and I had Bitcoin, so I sent it to him and he cashed out and did what he needed to do. And we did that back and forth a couple times. And for me, even now, that's still the vision I have, not just in America, of course. I like the idea of being able to send money to anyone, anywhere in the world with no middleman and within just a
yeah,
few seconds, right? Like,
yeah,
I think that kind of technology, even if it doesn't end up being nano, has so much potential, right? So much efficiency gain, so much. I don't know. It's just maybe I'm a little bit crazy there, but I feel like it has it. Ooh, can't talk. I feel like it could bring a lot of value to the world if it's actually executed. Like if there's actually fiat gateways, easy, cheap, direct access all over the world, like no matter what country you're in, if you could get Nano and then be able to send it, right? I mean, to facilitate trade,
yeah,
or in some cases, Bitcoin did start as the whole like censorship resistant self sovereign currency. And Nano also has that. So in some places, it's also useful for that. But being able to spend it and send it whenever and to whoever you want. That's what I'm looking for. I see some niche. Well, I can't say that word. Niches.
Niche.
But some area niche. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see some niche that smart contracts maybe could fulfill or help with. But for me personally, a lot of the crypto technology that's out there, the cryptocurrencies, I just don't have a use for. To
Yeah.
me, Nano is very simple, very straightforward. It's something that I can actually use on a day-to-day basis. If I want to pay a bill, I send some Nano, right? Something like that. Whereas the others are, I'm sure they have use, but for me personally, what am I really going to use it for in the real world? I don't know.
Well, and then the other thing I think of with smart contracts is, okay, well, from a small business standpoint, do I need to start setting up small contracts just to accept currency to buy a cup of coffee? Who's doing all
Yeah.
that software development to make those two things work
And review,
compatibly?
right? To
Yeah,
make sure
and
there's
it's
no
like
issues.
versus, I understand, like, you have a point of sale purchase, you have a point of sale system that does all your logs and everything all at once. So yeah, maybe from a smart contract standpoint, if you're going to have that all working, but why would you need that to be on the blockchain? I don't, like, as a
Yeah.
small business, I wouldn't want my personal information in my small business information out there on a public blockchain. I would want that on a private, on a private database. And so I like the idea of what
Yeah.
Capture's doing, of having a private database that accepts a decentralized currency. That seems smart to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Because when I try to think through in the real world, like a smart contract scenario, like for example, maybe filling up a car with gasoline automatically, there's still so many gotchas in that process that smart contracts don't really solve, at least not right now. Like you have to, like if we take Ethereum, for example, you have to have Ethereum in the first place, right? Your car has to be in that ecosystem. The gas station needs to be in that ecosystem. When you pull out the Oh man, I can't even think what are the things that you grab at a gas station to fill up your car with? The handle,
The pump, I guess the pump.
pump.
Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. So when you're at the pump, oh man, I promise I'm not a fifth grader. But
No,
when
dude, it makes me
you
feel better because I do that every single day, and I was like, "Am I getting old?" Like,
oh man,
no.
you're telling me. But yeah, you pull up to the pump and to be able to get okay, so you're putting the gas into your car, right? And then to make that a transaction on Ethereum, there's so many steps that it doesn't buy you much. And you're still trusting someone or something somewhere, right? You're hoping the smart contract is secure, not going to steal your funds and not take too much or too little.
Yeah.
Why do handle all of that when you could just directly pay with, of course, you could use credit cards or whatever, but I do like the decentralization piece and the removal of middlemen that like Nano or the original Bitcoin would bring. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent here, but I just personally don't have a strong use case for smart contracts. I could see maybe online for like Uniswap kind of decentralized exchanges where you're trading various tokens, but in the real world, when I'm buying products or goods, I don't see it. Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a use case for something of like, so I was selling a surfboard, or I was selling, some whatever on Craigslist, and after living in New York for a while and having friends who had, were victims of home invasion, I don't ever tell anybody where I live, and I
Yep.
don't meet them in front of my apartment. I meet them at the local police station down the street. So, because there's
Yep.
plenty of cameras right in front of the station, and everything's being videotaped, so I feel secure. But I could easily see in that situation of like, you put the money in a smart contract, but even then, it's just like, so what happens if the guy walks off with my surfboard and then says he never got the surfboard?
Exactly.
It's just like
Yep.
it like smart. I love
There's a
the
gap.
idea, but you got to have somebody who you trust to be the arbiter of whether that was provided or not, whether that service was provided or not, or the item was gotten or not. I'm reading your chat right now. It's funny because Rick says he found out about Nano because of crypto kitties on ETH. And I think that's just, and Foster, he's Crypto Daddy on Twitter. He said he found out about through IOTA as well. I think it's interesting that like everybody, like Nano isn't the one that everybody hears first. Everybody. I feel like everybody hears about Bitcoin first, and then
sure.
and if they try to use it, then they're like, God, this sucks. Like it's not usable.
Yep.
And then and the people who are curious, they start going out and finding more. It's like I feel like everybody in Nano has that story because everybody and everybody in Nano is curious and for the most part polite and nice, and that some people left IOTA. I left IOTA not only because it didn't work, but also because the community was just so toxic, and I was just like, I can't.
Oh, there was a lot of drama, even within the developer community.
Yeah, I mean, and if you follow me on
drama there, oh man,
on my personal Twitter account, I'm a pretty toxic person, and so if I'm saying they're toxic, that's pretty bad, because like I talk a lot of shit, blah blah. But I think at the end of the day, like I'm not like ruthlessly, unless the person's a complete Nazi, I'm not being a complete asshole to them. I just sound like I am. So
for me, even with all of IOTA's issues, IOTA is one of the ones that I still follow kind of closely because I like the idea, I like the vision. I don't know if they're ever actually going to accomplish it, but the theory is pretty cool, pretty nice. But
so how is
will
IOTA
that translate to the real world?
Yeah, so how is IOTA different than Nano? Because I really don't know. I know like they both supposed to do the same thing, but one allows for smart contracts essentially, and one doesn't. So right?
I don't know that IOTA has smart contract functionality right now. I think that's planned, but I don't know if that's actually the case. I can't remember. I'll have to go double check. But so they both are built on directed acyclic graph ledger data structures, but
IOTA's we'll just say
DAG
in the future, tangle. So Patrick doesn't have to say
that. Any long words I can't pronounce or say. But yeah, so they both are built on DAGs, but IOTA, its anti-spam mechanism is with, you have to do 2 proof of works before your own transaction gets confirmed, right? Whereas with Nano, you're just doing your own proof of work. You're not doing 2 proof of works for someone else and attaching to the tangle.
Oh, I thought Nano people were doing 2. I thought you were doing
no,
one.
I heard you and JJ talking about that.
Okay. So explain Nano, then explain the proof of work real fast, just so people, since obviously I've been saying it wrong the entire time. Why don't you clear that up?
Yeah, okay. Let me talk about Nano from scratch then, basically. Nano is a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, right? Trying to send value back and forth. To accomplish that, when you send a transaction on Nano, you broadcast a little block of code, right? It goes out to the representatives on the Nano network, and they're all listening and validating transactions according to the rules that everyone's agreed to, right? That you can't send more than you have, you can't send negative value, basic things like that, right? And then if those representatives think that the transaction they've received is valid, they respond back with their vote, which is just like the number of Nano that they own or is delegated to them. So if they have 10 Nano and someone else delegates 10 Nano to them, they vote with 20 Nano, right? And then your own node, when you see that 20 Nano vote, you count it up. And then once you get past a certain threshold, you consider the transaction confirmed. In order to prevent spam in that kind of system, everyone does a small proof of work, just a math problem, right? To basically say, hey, there's some value here. It's not completely pointless. I'm not just throwing out millions of worthless spam transactions. I actually want to use this system, so I'm paying with my electricity, basically. So at a high level, that's how it functions.
Okay. So you're saying, so the representative votes. How do they know if it's real or not?
What do you mean real? Like, well,
how do they know
the transaction is actually valid?
Yeah. How do they know if it's valid or not?
Yeah. Okay. So A
Like,
couple different ways.
is
One,
there some nerd in front of a computer screen looking at it going, this is not
I
accurate.
wish.
I am hitting deny, you know? That's my Conehead. Every nerd has a Conehead voice, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not sitting at my node all day watching transactions and confirming or blocking them. No, so every Nano node has a full copy of the ledger, and that ledger is just the list of transactions, right? It's split up or organized by accounts, so every account has its own chain. That's where the block lattice terminology comes in. Um, but because, like I say, I'm running a node and I have the ledger, if you make a transaction, I can see that, oh, before your transaction in your chain, you have or you had 10 nano, right? And your representative was set to XYZ and blah, 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 all the information that's in a transaction. So then if you try to send me 20 nano, obviously I know that's not a valid transaction just without even sending it to representatives because the math doesn't match, right? But if, say, you send a 10 nano transaction and you have 10 nano, how do I know that you haven't sent that before? And that's part of where the representative system comes in. You check with the representatives, and if no one has seen it before, or the vast majority, right, then that's how you know. And because all the representatives are doing the same thing, we're all checking the rules, checking our ledger, comparing the incoming transaction to the previous transactions in the account.
Okay, so then why does General Measures always jumps on the Twitter guy, General Measures? He's always jumping on and saying, oh, you don't really want any more than like 20 to 40 nodes worldwide, or else it would get too convoluted.
Yeah, so for a couple reasons, probably. The biggest one is if you let absolutely everyone who runs a node vote, you're just going to have way too much traffic. So imagine you have, let's call it 100 million total nano, right? So to get 100% confirmation, you'd want to see 100 million votes, right? If you have 100 million nodes, all with one nano, all broadcasting the transactions to every single other node, that's a massive amount of traffic, right? So that's where Nano's principal representative distinction comes in. You have to have, I think, 0.1% of the total supply delegated to you. So if it's 100 million, that'd be what, 1 million, I think,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
100,000.
wait,
I
point
can't do the
one or
math off the top of my head.
point one or 0.01?
0.1%.
Okay. So 0.1 is
I
a
think that's
million.
100,000.
A million.
Is
100 million, 1% of 100 million is a million. Oh, no. You said
1% is 1
0.1%.
million.
Point 1. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. 1,000.
0.1%.
100,000?
So
100,000.
100,000. I think we got it. 100,000. So if you have 100,000 nano or that much is delegated to you, that's when you can vote, which would limit the total number of nodes if everything was perfectly evenly distributed in this scenario to 1,000 nodes, right? And that's precisely because of the reason I think General Measures is talking about. When you have too many nodes contributing too little to the confirmation percentage, it's basically wasted traffic. Like because if you go below, in theory, you could have 1,000 nodes with less than 0.1% voting, and they'd all be sending basically the same amount of traffic, right? But to get you to a 0.1% additional confirmation, which is nothing in the grand scheme of confirming a transaction.
Okay. So then, and then I guess the other question I have about what you just said is everybody's performing a small proof of work. And, we're doing it on our phone or our computer or wherever, whatever physical hardware we're doing. And right now it seems inconsequential. But also, people using Nano are probably like 1/100th of the amount of people who are using Bitcoin, which is only like probably 0.05% of the population on the planet. Because even though a lot of people own Bitcoin, they're not actually doing any physical transactions with it. They're buying it on Coinbase and keeping it there, or whatever
For
exchange.
sure.
And then maybe they send it off, but they're not actually doing any of the work. The miners and the people running nodes are doing it. So if every single person on the planet is using Nano on a daily basis, like they're using credit cards, let's just say, wouldn't that inconsequential amount of energy being used for proof of work add up and become consequential at a certain point? And if it's just solving a math problem, who is it solving the math problem for? Is it just wasted a wasted process, or is it actually like,
Yeah.
checked, like, working with CDC or something like that and sending computational power?
No, right now it's purely wasted. There are some cryptocurrencies that do, like the protein folding at home. They incorporate that into their proof of work. Nano doesn't do anything like that, so it's purely burned math. And just straight up, Nano could not handle the whole world using Nano today. It does not scale for that. And I'd challenge people to find any cryptocurrency that does. But for me, the one of the reasons I like Nano is because it's not inherently limited at the protocol level. There's not like a block size times block time mathematical construct that limits Nano scalability. It uses whatever network resources are available. So the better hardware gets and the more optimized the node software gets, the more it can scale. Of course, it is limited by physics. That's the natural limit, but I think that's a better limit than arbitrarily forcing some other limits.
Yeah, like 10-minute blocks, which seems kind of ridiculous, or 7-minute, or 7 transactions per second or whatever.
Yeah, but to get back to the rest of your question on specifically about proof of work scaling for that, so the way Nano is designed, when the network is not saturated, the proof of work is minimal. It's at the base level, right? That takes, I think on like a 1080 Ti, kind of high end or mid end graphics card now, you could do like 3 to 5 proof of work per second. So it's not super high, but it's also not terribly low. And that's always going to be a difficult balance to find. But the part of the idea behind Nano is to keep pushing the network capacity so that you can be at that base level of proof of work most of the time, right? Maybe when it's Black Friday, right, and there's a burst of transactions, the network would get saturated and the proof of work requirements increase for that point of time until capacity opens back up or transactions have been processed, and then you can get back to that lower proof of work. I guess in theory, if the network is always saturated, you would have higher proof of work requirements because you'd have a higher base cost, kind of like Bitcoin doesn't have zero fee transactions anymore. But that, I would say that's pretty analogous to the fee market that a lot of crypto Twitter talks about. There has to be a cost, right? Otherwise, people abuse it, or it's unlimited spam transactions, or there's just more transactions than any node can handle.
Yeah. So, do you envision a time frame where the entire world is using Nano? Because you just said that it can't scale yet.
Yeah.
Based on current technology, but I mean, like,
that's my vision. I don't know if it will realistically happen in my lifetime. Because there's so many other challenges that have to be solved. Like access itself is already a difficult issue. Like here in Texas, I don't have any easy direct way to buy Nano. There's Kraken, but the KYC requirements and the funding requirements are still pretty complicated for the average person. Yeah. So that's a big issue right there.
They don't have a mobile app. Their mobile app is
there's no direct mobile
weird.
Purchases.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a problem right there. And then
hold on, let me get this straight. So don't mess with Texas, deregulated Texas, no state taxes, doesn't allow Binance US in Texas?
Yep.
What
Still don't have access. It's coming apparently, but at least Binance US is coming.
I lived in Texas for 3 years, and that fucking state is just like a conundrum. I mean, they're like,
it's an interesting mix.
Yeah, because cool. It's like they're super deregulated, and they don't like school, and don't like this, and don't like public education, and yet they have one of the most advanced high school theater competitions on the planet for public schools.
Really? That's news
Yeah,
to me.
like every person I went to school with, all the undergrads, they had all competed in this statewide competition. It was huge, and I was like, we didn't have anything like that in California. It was crazy. And I was like in this like in a top tier school, and in the music group I was in, even we would compete regionally in Southern California, but there was really nobody north of LA who would ever come down and compete with us. And then we'd compete nationally, but there was just like it was still it wasn't that big, but like nothing compared to what I'm hearing about like the competitions in Texas. And so it's just
Dang.
this really weird like they hate this, but then they do the exact opposite, and they love this, and they do the exact opposite. And it's just like, what is going on, Texas? Just secede already, and
So
then
are you telling me you're an
beg us
actor?
for water. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's what I have my master's in, and then my undergrad was in filmmaking and photography. So I lived in New York and did a lot of photography and acting, and
That's awesome.
not a lot, more photography than acting. It's okay. I'm more focusing on writing now. So I've been writing a lot of scripts
Gotcha.
and submitting them to contests and stuff. I'm working with somebody out in Chicago right now, a buddy of mine.
That makes so much sense. That's why you started the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? It's just like I don't know. I felt like participating in the community somehow, and this was kind of like the best way I knew how to do it.
It's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's entertaining for me at the very least. So it's like I don't make any money from it outside of the few occasional nano donations from you guys. So
Maybe one day. We'll see.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I've never really thought about it in those terms. It was always just kind of like a hobby. So it was more
Gotcha.
it was
Yeah.
more for helping me keep focused on what's going on in the community, and like versus just like zoning off and like I don't really care, and then just kind of like forgetting all about it. I feel like with this kind of thing, that's like a death sentence for any of my holdings if I just don't
Yeah.
pay attention
If
for
you're
a few
not paying
months,
attention. Yeah.
because everything will just go to zero. So I can understand why people become Bitcoin maximalists, because it does feel overwhelming to try to think about anything else,
Oh, for
and
sure.
then still have a life.
I mean, I'm guilty of that to myself to some extent. There's just so much noise and probably some realistically really good projects too that it's hard to evaluate them all. I do try to keep an open mind and do some research, at least go check out their website, skim the white paper, see if there's anything interesting, but I'm so attached to the peer-to-peer value transfer use case that it's hard for me to get excited about anything else.
Yeah.
It's just
No, and I like the
that's
idea
what
of
I'm here for.
I like the idea of because you were saying, my question to you about, do you see it being a worldwide currency? And I should have stipulated, I could absolutely see Nano becoming a worldwide currency and being like the internet money, or the money of the internet. But I
Hmm.
can't see credit going away, because credit is
Oh,
so
I don't think
useful.
it will.
And so
I'm not one of those people that thinks that the banking system is going to get completely overturned by crypto. I think there's actually some really good synergy, buzzword, but really good synergy between traditional financial institutions and crypto.
So if for anybody listening, we're going to make Patrick, every time he says any word, he has to say buzzword after it, if it's a buzzword.
Oh God.
Yeah, because the funniest thing is the people who I don't want. I mean, I don't. I want to be nice, but it's just like, especially like libertarian. I mean, I don't know if you're a libertarian or not, so I don't want to talk too much shit. But it's like, I feel like every time a libertarian says something and then shit hits the fan, they do the exact opposite. Like, they don't want police oversight, and as soon as somebody breaks into their house, they're calling 911. Where are the fucking police? It's like, you guys are assholes, and like blaming the police for not getting there fast enough. And it's just like, but I feel like the people talking all the shit about the banks are the ones, waving flags. Banks over here, buy our Bitcoin from us, pump our bet. It's just like
Hmm.
they want big banks to be. And now it's like Bitcoin has now become a Wall Street crypto, and I don't mind that so much. What I mind is that they sold the ethos of cypherpunk and anti Wall Street and this and that, and then as soon as they had the opportunity, they sold out. just to pump their own bags. And it just completely, in my mind, destroyed any credibility about what it was supposed to be. And then it made me question big blocks versus small blocks. Okay, well, was it really about making Bitcoin more usable, or was it more about how do I make more money off of Bitcoin? And that's when I started to really question everything about it. So I could see Nano working really well with credit cards because, like you said, I don't want to have to. I mean, I don't like as a gas station, I wouldn't want either they have to pay with their Nano up front and then I give them the remainder, or they use a credit card and I don't have to worry about it. And then a credit card is like that intermediate where it's safe for both people because it's you've got the insurance, you've got this, you've got that, and so I just don't ever see that going away because it's just such a safe way of doing things.
Yeah, and I don't think it will go away. I just like having the option of self-custody in the case of Nano, where if you want to be your own bank, you can be your own bank, but you don't have to be, right? I think even Andreas Antonopoulos talks about the same concept. Like for the people who want to be their own bank, we have an option. Well, not so much with Bitcoin anymore and all its fees, but in theory, you have the option, right? But that doesn't mean you have to destroy banks. I mean, some people would like to see them destroyed, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's. I get it. I get really upset because from a government standpoint, that's government's job to regulate banks, and when people blame the government, it's just like, no, you elected those people. That's why shit's falling apart, is because you elected dumb people to represent you. Like, stop electing. Don't hire your uncle to fix your toilet. Go hire a plumber who is trained on how to fucking fix toilets. So I don't want to curse on your. I don't want to curse on your stream. I'm a fucking. I'm a sailor. So talk to me about your channel, because you always do you do videos, you do some comedy videos.
Oh man, not really. You can't say I do comedy videos. I did one.
You got some backlash. You got some backlash for that one.
Yeah,
she was mad.
Yeah. I mean, for a good reason too. Like, if you look at the response to her video or videos versus mine, it is so different and wrongly different in my view. Like, she gets so much criticism just for doing what she wants to do, and I did basically the exact same thing, and people were cheering me on, like, "Yeah, go Patrick, go blah blah blah, you're so awesome." Like, okay, come on, guys, why is there this double standard?
Well, I mean, to be fair, I think that if the Nano community followed her, they wouldn't be giving her shit. And the people who were cheering you on were Nano people. Yeah. And Nano people are open to comedy, to humor, to lighthearted, poking fun and, teasing. They just seem like grown-ups. And so I could see from her standpoint, she's just seeing nothing but love, in your replies. But it's the community that follows you. You have Nano's a very supportive community. That's kind of why I got into it. But at the same time, I was just like, look, I mean, if you're gonna you're getting more famous, this is what comes along with it. People are going to, they're going to be inspired by you and want to, make adjustments to it and do this and copy you on, whatever on Pinterest or whatever the cool kids are using right now. Not Pinterest, I'm joking.
TikTok.
Yeah. So it's like, but that's going to happen. They're going to want what's that phrase is
imitate.
Yeah. Imitation is
the greatest form of flattery.
Yeah. So, I was talking with her about it, and I think in her mind, she doesn't think of herself as an artist. And I was like, hold on, girl, you are creating some of the best art on Twitter right now. Like, her videos are mind bending, because if you don't really understand what's going on, if you don't know Satoshi's white paper, you wouldn't have any idea what's going on in that video. But just the fact that she's doing that and she's doing all that different stuff. And so I love the fact that you were so inspired by it that you wanted to do your own with the Nano one. But So if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, I highly recommend checking out Crypto Finally. Are you okay?
I
Oh,
did
is that
turn up
bad?
my volume. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Is that better, Sergio? If you don't know what we're talking about, Crypto Finally did a great video, a comedy video where she's doing this like weird dance to while reciting the Bitcoin white paper. And then Patrick did one reciting got quieter.
What?
And then Patrick did one doing Nano, and it was great. They were both amazing. So if you have a chance, look those up, or I'll try to find them and put them in the show notes. People are talking in chat and saying I'm too quiet. So
Interesting. I turned up the
wow,
volume and they said you got quieter.
because I'm literally like 2 inches away from the microphone.
No, you sound great to me. Like your audio into my headset is pretty good.
Yeah, but we're going through Zencaster. That's a thing. So for whatever reason, it's going through to YouTube. So right now we're for any of my podcast listeners, we're live streaming on Patrick's YouTube channel and then recording locally to Audacity, and then I'll post this like in a week or something like that. Just so you know, because we're gonna read some questions in his feed and answer them. But so that's what's going on. So if you're lost, that's where we are right now. Do you want to answer some of the questions in chat?
Hello?
Yeah,
Are you still there? I think I might have lost you. Oh, there we go. Gotcha.
Do you want to answer some of the questions in chat?
Yeah, I guess I could go for it. Let's see.
Patrick, it's important. You got to listen to your fans. They're all here. They're all here for you.
I've never done this before, so this is a learning curve for me. What is my long-term belief on the crypto market? How much does regulation impact the market? So, I mean, I don't know. As far as prices up and down, I'm not a trader. I can't predict anything. I feel like there's value in the crypto space outside of even necessarily direct monetary value, just usefulness for facilitating trade, or even in some cases, I could see smart contracts being a little bit useful. Where does it go, though, over the next 5, 10, 15 years? It's hard to say. Like, I have a vision in my head. Like, I would like to be able to just spend Nano on anything, go to the store, just spend it if I want it, just like I do with a credit card, right? Are we actually going to get there? That's hard for me to answer because I don't have insight into the infrastructure that's necessary. Like, for me, a big thing that I would like to see is a Coinbase listing of Nano, right? Because it is one of the easiest ways for people in the US to get access to Nano. Without that, or without someone pushing services like that, it's hard for me to see where any particular cryptocurrency will be in the next 5, 10 years. I'm optimistic, and I think just because of the features that we already have, or the utility that Nano or other cryptocurrencies already have, someone out there is going to push some things along. I mean, we even have like niche use cases like Twitter micro tipping, which is it's just fun, even if it doesn't really go anywhere long term. But I think because of little use cases like that, hopefully over the next 5, 10 years, we do build into a better, bigger ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it becoming, and I've said this before on the show. I don't like saying this because I really like the technology. I just don't necessarily see it being the world's currency. I see it being more of like the internet, the infrastructure of the internet, of how money gets transferred, and you have different companies working on top of Nano, and you have your bank,
like
or
a
you have
backbone
Wilton.
protocol.
Yeah, kind of like how TCP is. TCP/IP is. It's the thing that nobody really understands what's going, or not nobody, but most people don't understand what's going on. It's just going on in the background, and they just know that when they type in a URL, it works, and they can see the page. They don't need to know how it works. and most people don't even really care.
Yeah.
It's just as long as it works. So, um, and about how much does regulation impact the market? I think, um,
I think it's quite a lot. Like in the US alone, a big part of at least why I don't spend as much as I want to is tax regulation alone, right? It is so painful to have to keep track if you want to do things by the book, right? It's so painful to keep track of every purchase with Nano and report it as capital gains at the end of every year, right? No one wants to do that, and that's killer. Like if even if we had Coinbase and direct access everywhere, because of things like that, realistically, how much can a peer-to-peer crypto take off? I don't know. I think it will be useful in some scenarios, but like you said, maybe in the background as a backbone protocol, but for like direct credit card replacement, I don't know that that's realistic precisely because of regulations like that.
Yeah, I just don't see. Yeah, I just don't see it replacing credit cards. I don't. If Nano is money, then why wouldn't credit cards work with Nano just like they're working with USD and like they work with rubles and just like they work with euro? Like credit card companies that it just smooths everything out for the most part. It just makes day-to-day transactions just smoother. And I think regulation in the terms of of markets, I think you have massive swings, and regulation's goal is to even those swings out. So you don't have 100% pumps and 100% dives. Just it tries to bring those back together, because rich people want highly volatile markets, because that's how they take money from people. Like that's how they make their money, is they take it through gambling and they take it through manipulating markets. So if you take that away from them, it just kind of evens it out. And right now with the stock market, when something moves 1%, Wall Street's losing their shit. They're like, holy shit, 1% movement today, and it's just like, that's 30 minutes of cryptocurrency.
Meanwhile, in crypto land. Yeah,
exactly. Like, hold my beer. And so I think that it would definitely take out the massive volatility of the cryptocurrency space if it was highly regulated. I don't think it would stop it from going up. I just think,
depending on the type of regulation, right? I mean, do we know? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just like, because you have something that's highly regulated, like the stock market, and look at Tesla over the past year, or look at Hertz Rent-A-Car or whatever one went bankrupt and then went up like 500% in a week, and all the people on Wall Street were like, what the fuck are these 15-year-olds doing on Robinhood? They have no clue what they're doing. Yeah. And and I don't know,
losing a lot of money.
Yeah. And rich people love that. Rich people love that. So what were you going to say?
No, I was kind of echoing your sentiment there. I don't know. I think it depends on the type of regulation that gets implemented, right? And whether or not it will actually have the impact that regulators are looking to have. That's a different question as well, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to speak because it's so hypothetical, but based on what we have right now, which is nothing, I mean, we see what we see, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, they could make cryptocurrency a what's it called when you have to be a specific type of investor? Accredited investor. They could just tomorrow make all cryptocurrency only. You can only buy it if you're an accredited investor. They could do that if they wanted.
Which if something like that came out, that would directly harm probably a lot of. Well, a cryptocurrency like Nano would harm that use case.
Yeah,
potentially.
Yeah, because it would be at that point just an asset that.
So we really don't know.
Yeah, so I could easily, I mean, and this is horrible, but I could easily see Bitcoin people trying to do that, since Bitcoin's no longer really trying to be money. Them trying to get a law like that passed, and since the majority of Bitcoin seems to be owned by Wall Street now, I could easily see Bitcoiners trying to push regulation like that through to destroy any kind of competition, especially after everything they've done with, stopping small blocks and big blocks or bigger blocks and doing everything they can. And the relentless toxicity they've levied at alts over the past 4 years.
Yep.
I mean, I could
Crypto
easily see
Bourbon
that.
in the chat makes a good point on the flip side, though, where if they made the right kind of regulation, well, I'm not going to say right kind, but if they made regulation that did allow it to be spent as a currency with less tax requirements or something like that, then of course that could push crypto the other direction, right? It's just, we don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It purely depends on what's passed.
Yeah, it just depends on what they do, and I mean, I feel like they don't. I feel like I understand that they want to protect poor people because poor people are usually the ones who get taken advantage of, and so you want to try to create regulation that protects poor people without actually stopping the market from just moving forward and progressing and being creative and seeing where it goes. Because it's like right now it still definitely is the Wild West, but it's slowly becoming more and more regulated, and it's interesting to see what'll happen with all that.
Yeah, I really don't know. I don't have a great answer for that question.
So it's weird that VT colon can't hear me, but Nick V can. So,
yeah, I don't know. That
and then
I'll
Lee
have to
Bell's is
figure
like,
out something afterwards.
Michael's sound isn't working, and Nick's like, I hear him. So, and VT's like, yeah, I can't hear him at all. All right.
I wonder.
Go ahead.
I wonder if they can't hear my own audio and they think I'm Michael and you're Patrick. Because now that I'm looking at my streaming software, anytime I talk, the audio bar does not move. But when you talk, it does move. Oh.
Well, I mean, I hope at this point that people know what you sound like, and after like watching your videos. Because could you imagine like you talking and like my voice coming out 5 seconds later, and they're like, "Oh, right? He sounds great." That would be.
I don't know. I'll have to figure it out afterwards.
Okay, I mean they're saying we hear you, Patrick. So there you go. So if you're just joining us, we're doing a live stream on Patrick's YouTube and recording a podcast for me, and so we're reading
it's
the
going
comments.
terribly.
No, it's going great. I mean, this is the first time Patrick's done it. The first time Keyword Crypto's doing it, and so I wanted to test something out now. But for whatever reason, yeah, it is. Here, the reason why we never did a YouTube show live stream is because we could never figure it out. It was just so infuriating on YouTube. So we just stuck to Zencaster and doing a podcast, recorded podcast, just because it was such a pain in the ass. So
now they're saying I got louder. Oh, I'm so confused. Oh well, we'll try again next time.
Yeah. So really fast, Lee Bell says, "Do you think some of the big investor money flow into Nano, and do you see this as good or bad? What do you think?"
Do I see big investors flowing into Nano? I don't know that I see big investors. I see more investors lately, at least on crypto Twitter. There seems to be a lot of buzz around Nano lately. But yeah, I don't know. Like if you're talking at the institutional level, the Michael Saylors of the world, I don't know that I've seen any hints of that happening in the Nano space. I would like to see it, and I think it would be good, but I don't know that it's actually happening.
Way too early. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
They were jumping into Bitcoin when the market cap was that high, and it already had a bull run to 20,000, and then they bought in at 3,000. Yep. So I don't.
They bought in what 2020 after 11 years of Bitcoin's existence.
Well, they announced it in 2020, so they were accumulating in 2018 and 2019. While they were telling everybody that Bitcoin was a scam and blah blah, they were all secretly buying. Fidelity was secretly mining it. Yeah, that's the thing about banks is they never show their hand. So when they tell you they're doing something, it means they've been doing it for the last year or two, and they're just now showing their hand and then allowing poor people to pump their bags. So That's kind of my big gripe with Wall Street or just banks in general. But I don't see them going away. But maybe regulation can fix some of that. What's your take on DeFi? Do you look at any DeFi coins like Chainlink, or are you mostly focused on currency first?
I'm pretty strongly currency first. I don't know enough about DeFi to have a strong opinion on it. From an mostly outsider point of view, it seems like it could have some valid applications and be pretty useful. Like I see the Uniswap kind of exchanges and the automated trading of stable coins. If you're going to do stable coins, that seems kind of cool. But to me, I just don't see that much real world impact. I'm pretty strongly in the digital cash use case.
I mean, I just don't see stuff like Uniswap being anything other than a niche case for traders. Whereas you have something like BlockFi or Celsius or Nexo that are actually acting like decentralized banks, and instead of giving the profits to their shareholders, they give it to the people who are putting liquidity into their company. And then they're giving out loans in Bitcoin or USD or USDT or whatever, or USDC. So I like the idea of that, because it just, I like the idea of the people creating the liquidity are the ones benefiting from the loan. I just don't want to see it turn into a payday lending scheme. And then, so,
and people get taken advantage of.
Yeah. How are you doing on time wise? Do you got to go? You got to guess like one or two more questions?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a good one from Rick. Can you discuss some of the improvements in Nano from 2017 until now and some obstacles?
Sure. So I'm trying to think what the last release was in 2017.
2017,
when I first got in,
they were just they were just moving on from the developer wallet.
Yep, and that was towards the end of the CAPTCHA faucet distribution, I think, as well. If I remember at the time, the transactions were fast, but they weren't that fast. They were probably like 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, it was weird because at one point it was like in the 1 to 3 second range. Then I think it crept up to 5 to 10 seconds, and then it came back down all the way now to less than 1 second average, and that's through different node releases. I think a lot of the work that was done was stability and the implementation of resiliency features like dynamic proof of work and proof of work prioritization, things that help Nano combat spam. Also, a lot of work was done on scalability in the real world to improve the maximum capacity, right? And they also, a big change was the way voting worked. Because in the original white paper, and people still get tripped up by this, the way it describes Nano is that voting only happens when there's a conflict, right? So by default, because of the block lattice ledger data structure, people originally were able to make transactions directly with no voting, and then you only vote if there's a fork scene, like, right, if I tried to spend a transaction twice, then voting would happen. And that kind of system is really nice from a scalability point of view, because you really limit the amount of voting and network traffic happening. But the problem is that it gets kind of tricky to know when is a transaction really confirmed. How long do you have to wait to make sure you haven't seen a double spend or that voting needs to happen? So now Nano just votes on all transactions up front, which is a pretty big change.
That's smart, because from an accepting, like the person accepting the Nano, why would they care if it was double spent or not? As long as they have Nano in their pocket and it's theirs and it's in their wallet, you can't take it back, can you?
Well, so it depends on the scenario. In like a Bitcoin scenario, or I guess really any cryptocurrency, if you as a vendor accept a payment and then the person paying you spends that same payment somewhere else, it's possible that you don't really have the money, right? If you don't have actual confirmation. So you want the assurance up front and as quickly as possible. Even when Nano was originally released, probabilistically it was very secure and confirmation happened almost immediately. But there were some edge cases when the network got saturated or when there were double spend attempts, that you wouldn't know how long to wait, and that messed up the user experience. Whereas now, if you vote on everything up front, you can very easily discard a follow up double spend attempt, and then you're sure in your money. And then Nano also has deterministic finality now, right? Where once you've gotten that confirmation, everyone's voted up front, you just mark it as irreversible and it can't change no matter what. So
So
I don't know if
eventually,
that actually answers the question.
yeah, yeah. So eventually, though, how big are representative nodes going to have to end up being?
Big in what sense? Like hardware?
Uh, like gigabyte, terabyte, gazigabyte,
Gotcha.
whatever
So
it is. Zettabyte, is
they
that what's
don't
next?
have to be anything, and that's one of the benefits and one of the downsides of Nano. So the benefit, of course, is that anyone can participate pretty easily, right? I think the official recommendation is 4 gigabytes of RAM, a quad core processor, and an SSD. That's it, right? Whereas some other cryptocurrencies have very, very high and very strict requirements in the 32 plus gigabytes of RAM, high storage requirements, et cetera, et cetera. Um, where it would need to be for worldwide adoption, uh, it's I struggle with the word need because Nano functions as is, right? Even with mostly consumer hardware, we're already at I would say, like a PayPal level of scalability. PayPal has what, like 300 million customers now, and they do, um, I want to say like a 197 TPS average or something like that. I'll have to check my numbers, so don't quote me on that. But it's not
197?
crazy high.
Wow.
Yeah. So actually, let me pull it up real quick. I might as well. It's really a lot lower than people think. So I know, like, for example, in 2011, when PayPal first hit about 100 million customers, averaged out, they were doing about 57 TPS, transactions per second, which is a lot lower than people think for 100 million people potentially.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy slow. I mean, not crazy slow, but just compared to like what we think of with Visa and credit cards. Um,
Yeah. But I mean, even Visa, the statistic that was going around for a while is probably not true anymore, but was like 2,000 transactions per second with the ability to burst to like 50,000 for like Black Friday or whatever.
yeah.
That's a lot, but it's not a crazy amount. And if you think of a payment crypto like Nano, realistically, what are the chances in the short or medium term that you're going to get anywhere close to that level of customers? To get all of Visa's customers or all of Mastercard's customers to switch to crypto? I don't. I think we're years away from something like that
Well,
happening.
and
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 even
it goes.
as is,
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like, why would you? Why would like
yeah.
one
What's
day
the benefit?
Visa's gonna let you pay your Visa bill with Nano? So like, why would you change anything that you're doing? It's the whole thing of like people want to change like reinvent the wheel, and you don't need to. Like the system is already there. We just need to make it more equitable for people. So you have all the hardware invented. You don't want to reinvent everything because then you're just slowing down progress. Um,
Yes and no. I think some people in crypto would probably push back on that, though, right? From just the purely like censorship resistant and decentralization and self sovereignty perspectives, right? You do want to rebuild, or at least maybe in my view, I can't speak for everyone, but you probably do want to rebuild some financial or traditional financial institution services on top of crypto potentially, right? Because in theory, if you want a digital cash like Nano to be adopted widely, you want to cater to all demographics, right? You want to cater to the people who want self custody, but you also want to cater to the average person who just wants cheap payments that are very simple, pretty analogous to traditional credit cards or traditional financial transactions, right? So if you're trying to target both ends of the spectrum like that, you would probably need to recreate a lot of banking services and systems on crypto. But I don't, in my view, that doesn't harm crypto, and vice versa. It doesn't necessarily harm the traditional system. It just gives people more options. And
oh
hopefully
no,
it drives.
I just mean like banks already exist. credit card machines
Yeah.
already exist. All the infrastructure is already there. We just like some people want to switch USD to Nano or USD to BTC. They
Oh,
want to.
gotcha.
They just
Yep,
want
yep.
to. They just want to change the currency. But I don't see private centralized servers going away, right? Because banks aren't going to
No,
want
correct.
to run on on an open network where everybody can see all their transactions and see their customers' customers' transactions. Like one of the great things about a bank is that it's relatively private. Like my neighbor
Yep.
doesn't know what I spent all my money on, and vice versa.
Yep.
And
And
so,
that's probably one of my biggest criticisms of Bitcoin, Nano, a lot of transaction-based currencies is the lack of privacy really hinders its use as a currency, right? No one
yeah,
wants to, and that's one of the big arguments for Monero, right? No one wants to go to Starbucks and then they see you have 100,000 Bitcoin, right? They're just
yeah,
gonna follow you home and and beat you over the head with a wrench. So
yeah.
that's a
And
challenge.
I mean,
And there's some solutions to that.
yeah, I mean, you can have a savings wallet and your payment wallet and this and that and do all these different things. Like I do that just because I don't want like I don't put my main address out there. I put in a dummy address and then send everything back and forth between wallets and everything like that. It's just but that's just it. It's just it's kind of dumb to have to do that.
Yep.
But
And even that doesn't give you great privacy, right? I mean, really not any privacy. It just makes it a little bit more complicated, but anyone who really wants to know what you have, they could track it down, right? And
yeah,
that's a
but I mean,
concern.
isn't that kind of one of the whole points of Bitcoin is that everything's on the blockchain for everyone to see. So like
I don't know that that's the
rich
point
people
of
can't
Bitcoin
hide their
necessarily.
money and the Caymans or Panama or whatever. And it's like,
I've heard that argument, but I don't know that. Like, if you talk to a Bitcoin maximalist, I don't think they're going to tell you that no privacy is a benefit. That sure, they're going to tell you that the open ledger and the verifiability, if that's a word, like the ability to check the rules, check the transactions, and make sure it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. That is a benefit, but the openness itself, I don't know if I'm getting that point across correctly.
well, Daniel Krawitz, big BSV guy, he flat out said, once you institute privacy, you institute the ability to steal from people. Theft just goes up dramatically because now people can target you, and once they take
With
your money,
privacy,
say it again.
you're saying with privacy, theft goes up?
Yeah, because once somebody targets you and gets your money, it's almost impossible to track at that point. Because right now, when somebody
Yeah,
steals Bitcoin, they're tracking those people, and a lot of these hackers are like, "Oh, I was just testing it out. Here's the money back," because people found out who it was, and they're like, "Oh
yeah,
shit!" Like, so then all of a sudden, it deters people from stealing because everything's on the blockchain and everything, and you can I said it before, is that's how they tracked the Russians in the troll farms, was they were accepting money with Bitcoin, and the FBI tracked them with that, with the transactions. So, and Daniel Craig was just flat out said
yeah.
like,
And I
look,
think a lot of BSV fans make that argument, right? But do you think Bitcoin fans make that same argument? I don't hear that
well,
as much
I
personally.
mean, BTC fans also don't think it's money anymore. So in my mind, a Bitcoin maximalist doesn't necessarily have any room to talk because they're just, goalpost movers in my mind. It's just like all they care about is money go up, or, number go up. And it's kind of hard to listen to them and take what they say credibly, because at any given moment, I feel like they're willing to completely change their mind if it benefits their wallet. And I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, how do you have a
that's kind of human
conversation with
psychology,
somebody?
though, right? On some level,
Yeah.
people always justify their decisions after the fact. I mean, I'm sure I do it
Some
too
people
for,
do. Some people do.
well, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty unhealthy thing to do, emotionally unhealthy thing to do, and some people, yeah, some people will try to justify their actions and then convince themselves they're right and convince themselves that the justification is warranted. That's how slavery existed. That's how denying women the right to vote existed. That's how denying black people and white people from getting married,
Yep.
worked. It's like usually justification is there because of wrongdoing, because the person knows they're wrong, but they're justifying it anyway. So in my mind, it's like if you see somebody justifying what they're doing, they're probably doing something wrong, either ethically, morally, or legally. So
then are you personally not a fan of privacy in cryptocurrency?
I don't care either way. I
Gotcha.
literally just think about it from the terms of how does it hurt poor people? How does it benefit rich people, or how does it benefit poor people? I look for attack vectors. That's why I really liked Mario's response in that conversation with Colin on Twitter. But I like the idea of attack vectors. But when you're coming up with like, well, what if a Star Wars vessel came from outer space, made first contact, and did this, then NANO would completely fail. And I'm like, okay, you got me there. If
Yeah.
if physics as we know it completely falls apart, then I admit that NANO will fail. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, let's be realistic. If that happened, because like his attack vector was like 70% of the world's internet is gonna be attacked and get shut down, and NANO would fail. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I think if 70% of the world's internet infrastructure went down, we would have a lot more to worry about than NANO. So,
Oh, for sure.
because people wouldn't be eating, goods and services wouldn't be shipping anymore, and like developing nations wouldn't have. I mean, everything would fall apart. And so, yeah, that's what I kind of
I
find.
guess so. On the privacy topic, it probably depends on your local environment as well, right? Like if you have a strong law enforcement or legal system to back you up in the case of theft, then maybe a purely open ledger is okay for you. But if you're in a place where there's a lot more corruption, a lot more, I don't know, gang or criminal activity with less legal infrastructure to fall back on, then maybe you don't want your transactions as public, right? You don't want someone to be able to follow you home
Well,
and
I
beat
mean,
you over the head for your
if you look at places that don't have a lot of regulation, there tends to be a lot more crime. I'm just thinking of like nations that don't have democratic processes in place. There's a lot more oppression. There's a lot more warlords or dictators, or authoritarianism. I'm thinking like North Korea. I'm thinking
yeah,
certain
maybe
countries in
Somalia.
Africa, Somalia, yeah, Afghanistan outside of the green zone, where you have warlords controlling everything. And if you have no rights. If the warlord says you need to be killed, you're killed. And so
Yeah,
I think those are perfect examples, and Silk Road, perfect example. It starts off as this utopian vision of no oversight. Then all of a sudden people are being accused of hiring people to murder somebody else. And
but so in all of those places, you in the context of cryptocurrency, you probably would want privacy, no?
sure, if you want to try to kill somebody, yeah, you absolutely want privacy.
I mean, but even as the average person just trying to make it, right? Or
Well, if you're
would you
to
still think
make
of
it
it
with
as a
illegal
detriment?
things, but that's what I mean. It's just like they're purposely doing that to bypass community laws, right? Because most laws are, it's about like what the community wants, and usually when the community doesn't want it, they push back and they don't allow the law to get passed because enough people are like, no, this is bullshit. We don't want all of our guns taken away. It's our right. And people are like, yeah, we don't really want to get rid of guns. We just want to get rid of some guns. And that's how the conversation, and so we're in a shitty situation in this country where our government is, especially with the Senate, is just not representative government. And so you have a minority of people controlling the majority. and that's not good. So, but I think that's a perfect example of like, with how much privacy there is in this country, a lot of shady shit is going on, and people are unhappy with that. And so I could really see them being very happy if everything went public.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
you
That's
but
an
you live in
interesting
Texas. You live in Texas, so
argument. Guns everywhere.
and you people are a conundrum. So I don't know. So I got to wrap it up pretty soon. You want to do like one or two more questions?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what is there. I feel bad now thinking about it. I didn't really get to address JJ's points from the last episode, or was it the 100th episode? He wants to hear a lot more Nano criticism. I don't feel like I criticize Nano that much.
Well, I mean, you said that it won't. It currently can't scale because of technology, not because of
to
code.
to immediate worldwide use,
Yeah.
global usage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like a direct Visa replacement now.
Yeah.
Could it
But I
be
mean,
that way in 5-10 years? I think so, but
yeah, I mean,
yeah, as a drop in,
credit card machines went offline all the time, or had issues a lot, even 10 years ago. So
yeah,
it
exactly.
wasn't like credit cards have been this perfect tool for our entire lives. And what about attack vectors? What attack vectors have you encountered or heard about that worry you, if any do?
Yeah. So there's a couple. I mean, the attack vector that even Mario brought up has been brought up a couple times by more than just Mario. The idea of if you perfectly split the nano network and you have two partitions, right, that each independently confirm a transaction, then you have no way to resolve that. And what do you do at that point? Um, I don't, like you said, I don't think that's realistic because you'd essentially have to perfectly split the nano network in half and not let any node in either of those partitions communicate with each other at all.
Yeah.
Which
And not know what's
is
going
almost
on.
impossible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
and not know what's
people
going
talk.
on, and it has to be for. I think you'd have to do that for at least 2 weeks straight, at least, because of the way all nano nodes keep a trended um, weight measurement, basically of here's how much weight I've seen online for the last 2 weeks. So if you suddenly split the network, then they'll still have that previously defined higher threshold, and they're not automatically going to confirm transactions at the new lower threshold.
And wouldn't that be a
But I
really
guess
easy fix? You just have each representative ping themselves once a day or something like that, and get a ping back just to know that they're all connected.
potentially, but you make availability trade-offs there, right? Because you legitimately could have representatives go offline, and you don't always want the network to completely stall just because a few representatives have gone offline. If
Oh,
enough go
no, no, but
offline, then sure
yeah,
you
like
do, but
if enough didn't respond, it would, the authorities would be alerted,
stall.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it
and
would
that's
stall.
basically what happens right now. If I think the number is 60 million, if less than 60 million vote weight is online, then it just stalls until it comes back because you get into those kind of dangerous scenarios. But I guess as far as other attack vectors, though, one that's probably more realistic is just keeping the network saturated, basically spamming the network, right? It's not totally easy because of the proof of work requirements and also because of the dynamic proof of work adjustment. Once the network does get saturated, those requirements go up and legitimate users can be moved to the front of the line if they do a little bit more. But realistically, if some miner with some GPU with 1,000 GPUs just wanted to spam the network with transactions, they could. I don't know that they would get much out of it. It'd be a questionable benefit to them. But if the goal is purely to harm the network or slow the network and cause concern, that's probably a realistic attack. I'm
Which
not too
especially if Nano became a default currency and you have all these Bitcoiners with all these miners, they could be
yeah.
like, "Fuck you, Nano. We're gonna spend all of our time now spamming your network with our ASIC miners." because they have the hardware to do
The
it.
ASICs wouldn't work directly
Oh, that's
because Nano
true.
uses a different algorithm, but they surely have regular GPU farms, right? So
Yeah.
that's still a realistic attack. But at the end of the day, that's really not that different than Bitcoin and its fee market and fees increasing because of high usage, right? It,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not directly analogous, obviously, but at the end of the day, if someone is paying the cost and increasing the cost of the network, that how else do you limit the not limit the capacity, but how else do you limit the I'm totally blanking. Limit the spam activity, I guess you want to call it,
Yeah.
without impacting legitimate users. There's if someone is going to pay the cost, whether that's proof of work or that's a transaction fee, then that increases costs for everyone. And there's not that much you can do about it other than making your network as scalable as possible and having those costs be dynamic.
Well, and then Andrew brings up a good point that I've talked about in past episodes of he says harming the network gives value to other cryptocurrencies, which some people have literally billions of dollars invested in now. And
Yep.
this is why I say you can't trust anybody who works for a Bitcoin company. Not that you can't trust them, but you have to take everything they say with a grain of salt because they're invested in the success of that company financially, time wise, this, that. Like they're going to do everything they possibly can to win. And sometimes that means stabbing somebody else in the back.
Yep.
Because it literally is still a
But
wild west.
in that attack scenario, what does that actually mean for Nano? It means, okay, the network is saturated. It means confirmation times increase to what? An order of magnitude, 2 orders of magnitude higher? That's still faster than a Bitcoin
Yeah. Yeah.
confirmation, right?
I mean, if it's still
And
under 10 seconds, then I think no one's going to care. If people can say, like,
yeah,
oh, the network's slow right now, it's going to be, oh, there you go. It's done. It's just like,
exactly.
I mean, because credit card networks go down all the time. Still, to this day, you walk in like, oh, our credit card company's not working. We're only accepting cash.
Yep.
Cash only over here. It's just like, so it's, I think when people expect perfection in a world that isn't even remotely perfect. So what Abdullahi said, my biggest problem with crypto is credit cards already exist and are much faster. Yes. Abdullahi is, I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah, but credit cards go down still. They don't go down as often as they did 10 years ago. So, and credit cards have been around for like 80 years now, 70 years, something like that. Like when did they come out? Like in the 50s or 60s? So they have a huge lead on
Head start.
cryptocurrency, head start on cryptocurrency. Nano's been around for 3 years, 4 years. So obviously credit cards are going to be faster, but not necessarily. Like Nano's almost instantaneous, and it's only 3 years old, 4 years old. So imagine Nano 80 years from now when there's more infrastructure built out, and a Nano accepting machine, a credit card machine that accepts Nano or whatever in every single storefront. That could be entirely different. But it's a good point. I would agree with you, Abdullahi, is that it's a lot easier to use credit cards right now. I wouldn't necessarily say it's faster than Nano, but it definitely is easier overall. And especially like if you're like Patrick and you live in fucking backward ass Texas. I'm just gonna talk shit so much. My mom just
That's
moved there.
all good, man.
I convinced my mom to move there, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it. But she's like, it's so weird when I go outside of Austin. It's so different. That I'm like, yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it depends
different,
where you're at.
big difference. So I kind of got to wrap it up. There's still more questions in here, and I feel bad. I want to answer everyone, but I kind of got to get going.
That's all good.
But we'll have to do it again sometime, and people can jump on or hey, if you're listening, throw your questions up in Twitter. at Keyword Crypto or at Michael Crypto or at Patrick Luberus. Is that it?
Yep, you got
Okay. And then we can all answer the questions there, keep it going, or you can jump on Reddit and ask the questions there and do all that. So thanks for doing this, though. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing it on the fly and testing it out and being the guinea pig.
it. No problem. Happy to be here.
It was a good time.
Always enjoyed discussing crypto, nano or otherwise.
Yeah.
Promise I'm not a nano maximalist. I'll talk about anything.
You know what? And that's why I think that's why I liked, I wanted to have you on, because on Twitter, you definitely aren't like an acolyte. You don't treat it as a religion. And so those are the kind of people I like to have discussions with.
Sure.
All right.
Likewise.
Thanks, everybody. Check out Patrick at Patrick Luberus on Twitter. And then you can go to his YouTube channel. Is it just the same? Patrick Luberus?
Yep.
Luberus. All right, everybody. See you next time.